We're here to talk a little bit today about our company, which is called JHI Associates. We are headquartered in Toronto, Canada, and a technical office in Dallas, Texas. I am based in Washington, D.C. My background is I'm a lawyer by training, so try not to hold that against me. But I've spent enough time with geologists over the last 4 or 5 years to be dangerous enough to allow them to, or have them allow me to give this presentation. Typical disclaimers here. I'd like to start off by pointing out where our block is located. So we are in deep water offshore Guyana. Our partners are ExxonMobil, who has 35% and is the block operator, and Total of France, who also has 35%, and a local Guyanese company called Mid-Atlantic Oil and Gas, which is 12.5% interest. Our company, JHI, is 17.5%. The block is quite large, over 6,000 square kilometers. If you think in terms of Gulf of Mexico blocks, that's over 250 U.S. Gulf of Mexico blocks. And our water depths range anywhere from 1,700 to 3,000 meters of water. We're immediately adjacent to ExxonMobil, Hess, and Nexen, now CNOOC, in the Staybrook block offshore Guyana, where since 2015, they have made 13 discoveries out of 15 wells for an unprecedented 87% success rate. Immediately adjacent to us in the Staybrook block, Exxon and their partners have announced over 5.5 billion barrels of recoverable oil. They are starting production as early as the first quarter of 2020 with Liza Phase 1. Liza was the basin opening well, started in March of 2015 and was announced as a significant discovery in May of 2015. That first phase of Liza production will be 120,000 barrels a day, followed up by a second phase, which will be 220,000 barrels a day in 2022. And Exxon and their partners have announced already with their 5.5 billion barrels of discoveries adjacent to us that they are planning for up to 5 or more FPSOs that will ultimately produce 750,000 or more barrels a day by 2025. This is really an unprecedented success rate and something that will be transformative for our host country of Guyana, which is a small country, 800,000 people. And by 2025, we'll be producing more oil per capita than any country on the planet. Our friends at Hess Corporation have been kind enough to produce some really interesting slides which talk about the Phase 1 and Phase 2 break-even prices. So you can see that even in $25 or $35 oil, you make money here offshore Guyana. And for those of you that are familiar with deep water, they've actually put together a slide which we think is quite interesting here in the bottom left, which compares what you need to get, how many wells you need to drill offshore Guyana to get the same production you would in the Delaware Basin onshore Texas, right? So they're talking about average EUR per well of 63 million barrels, which is just an unheard of number. And so from 8 wells, you get the same production you would out of 1,400 wells in the Delaware Basin. So that you can see how Hess is transforming their company to be focused offshore Guyana. It's an easy place for us to work. It's the only English-speaking country in South America. It's a stable democratic republic. It's a parliamentary system. And based on English common law, they're also use the Canadian corporations law. And as you can see, we feel that our company, JHI, is in good company with ExxonMobil, Total, and others who you can see here, Nexen, Anadarko, Repsol, folks who have had success along the African side of the Atlantic margin. So they came to Guyana and Suriname in 2008 and beyond after the Jubilee success in Ghana, playing the plate reconstruction concept. I'm not going to bore you too much with our team other than to explain that our track record or our history in Guyana goes back to 1998 when our CEO, John Cullen, and a gentleman by the name of Dr. Kamal Dookie were the original co-founders of a company called CGX. CGX got their first licenses offshore Guyana in 1998, actually a year before Exxon and their partners got the Staybrook license. Over time, CGX drilled three unfortunately disappointing geologic wells. They were interesting but not commercial. And so old money, new money came in, old management left, and that was the creation then of JHI. And our mandate really was to secure a license offshore. That's the Canje block, which we got in March of 2015. The very next day, actually, Exxon spud Liza 1. So it's been a very interesting run for us, where we started with a particular mindset that we were going to be in a rather sleepy basin. Maybe some wells would get drilled next to us in Suriname, and we would just kind of see what happens. And so fast forward now 4 years later, and 13 discoveries off our flank, and things have changed for us quite dramatically. We've beefed up our technical team with Ken Niblink, who is former Amoco and former Devon, an Atlantic margin specialist, Dr. Mossab Nasser, who is a PhD geophysicist, one of the top AVO experts on the planet, and his prior work, just before coming to work for us, he worked for Hess in the block adjacent to us. So we think we're pretty well calibrated to what we're seeing there. Again, we got the license in 2015, shot block-wide 3D seismic after Exxon joined us in 2016. Then conducted a competitive farm-out process, as I mentioned, which saw Total join us in 2017, officially approved by the government in 2018. And where we find ourselves today is that the partnership has approved 2 wells to drill, starting as early as the first quarter of next year, most likely in January. Those wells could be back-to-back. The first one is targeting a 500 million barrel, more or less, P-mean recoverable confined channel complex that looks exactly like the Liza field, Liza discovery. So it's very familiar to Exxon in terms of what they've had success with. The second prospect up for us to drill will be a basin floor fan, much larger, and our estimate is that it is 1 billion to 1.2 billion barrels P-mean recoverable. For us in our block, we're quite excited because we see prospects in each of the 3 proven petroleum systems that Exxon and their partners have proven just up system from us, and so that would be early Cretaceous, which is the Ranger discovery, which is an Albion-aged carbonate, late Cretaceous, which is all the primary discoveries at Liza, Payara, Pecora, and on. And then some of their new discoveries up are in the shallower section, Hammerhead and Pluma. We see prospects for us in all of those stratigraphic environments. We've recently conducted a competent persons report by DeGollier and McNaughton, which coincidentally does all the global resource reserve estimates for Hess. And so they have seen all the well logs in the block next to us, and they have given us, on 12 prospects that we gave to them, 1 billion barrels net risked to JHI, 17.5%. So we're quite excited about the future for us, which is to start drilling in January of next year. And we're planning for success after that. So as soon as things get started, we're hopeful that we have a rig line of our own, and that we are able to demonstrate the same level of success that Exxon has had in the block next to us. Just leave you with a final thought that our mandate really is not to create a company the size of Cosmos or Tullow, companies who've had great exploration success. Our company's mandate is really to add value through the drill bit and then exit via an asset sale sometime after discovery. With that, I'll leave it for questions.
Any questions? Great presentation.
Well, we're here to educate this market on what we're up to, who we are and who our partners are, and our plans for the short term, which, as I said, are drilling in the spring, winter of 2020, and to potentially raise capital to support that further drilling program beyond our carry from Total. Total is carrying us on 2 exploration wells and potentially 2 more appraisals.
Okay, excellent.
Thanks very much.